The crisp autumn air wrapped around me as I stepped out of the cozy lakeside cabin, its wooden facade glowing warmly against the backdrop of vibrant foliage. The family retreat had been planned for months, a chance to reconnect with my husband, Jack, and our children. However, as I watched them laughing and playing by the water, I felt an unsettling distance growing between us. Jack had been preoccupied lately, lost in his thoughts while I struggled to find my place in this gathering. I wandered towards the dock, where the sun danced on the lake's surface, casting shimmering reflections that seemed to mock my internal turmoil. The laughter of my children echoed behind me, a bittersweet reminder of happier times. My heart sank as I recalled how Jack used to hold my hand during these moments, his affection palpable. Now, it felt like we were merely going through the motions. "Hey there," a familiar voice interrupted my reverie. It was Robert, my father-in-law. He stood beside me with a warm smile that seemed to cut through the chill in the air. Robert had always been a comforting presence in our family, kind-hearted and easygoing, but today he seemed different somehow. There was an intensity in his gaze that made me feel both seen and vulnerable. "Hi, Robert," I replied softly, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" he said, glancing at the lake. "Perfect for some fishing or just enjoying nature." "Yeah," I murmured, feeling an unexpected flutter in my chest as he moved closer. His presence was grounding yet disconcerting. It stirred something within me that I hadn't acknowledged before. We stood together for a moment in silence, watching the ripples on the water. As if sensing my unease, Robert turned to me with genuine concern etched on his face. "How are you doing? You seem a bit distant." I hesitated before answering. Vulnerability was not something I easily embraced. "Just thinking about everything," I finally admitted. He nodded knowingly. "Family can be overwhelming sometimes." His words hung in the air between us like an unspoken truth. As we chatted about trivial matters, weather forecasts and fishing techniques, I noticed how effortlessly our conversation flowed. It felt refreshing compared to the strained exchanges with Jack lately. Robert's laughter was infectious. It drew me out of my thoughts and into the moment. But just as I began to feel comfortable, a sharp voice broke through our bubble. "Mom, can you help us with this?" It was one of my children calling from the cabin. I sighed inwardly but smiled at Robert before turning away. Duty calls. As I walked back towards them, I overheard snippets of conversation from Jack and his brother discussing their plans for dinner later that evening, a barbecue by the fire pit with everyone gathered around. Yet beneath their light-hearted banter lay an undercurrent of tension that caught my attention. "I can't believe she's still upset about that," Jack said dismissively. "Maybe she has a point," his brother replied quietly. I paused just out of sight behind a tree trunk, curiosity piqued by their words. Who were they talking about? A knot tightened in my stomach as worry crept in. Perhaps it was about me or something more significant within our family dynamics. "Let's just keep things civil for now," Jack insisted before their voices faded away into laughter again. The unease settled deeper within me as I returned to help with dinner preparations, trying to shake off the feeling that something was amiss beneath our cheerful facade. The evening unfolded with warmth and camaraderie around the fire pit. Laughter filled the air while marshmallows roasted over crackling flames. Yet despite being surrounded by family, Jack's siblings and their spouses, I felt an emptiness gnawing at me from within. It wasn't until later when everyone dispersed into their own conversations that Robert found his way back to me near the edge of the dock once more. "Looks like they're having fun," he remarked casually while leaning against one of the wooden posts supporting the dock's structure. "Yes," I replied quietly but couldn't shake off how isolated I felt even amidst all this joy. Robert studied me closely for a moment before speaking again. "You know you can talk to me if you ever need someone to listen." His words struck a chord deep inside, A yearning for connection sparked by his sincerity washed over me unexpectedly like autumn leaves swirling in brisk winds. "I appreciate that," I said softly, but quickly diverted my gaze back to where families gathered around fireside games nearby, anything to avoid delving deeper into emotions threatening to surface between us. As darkness enveloped us under twinkling stars above, lake waters glistening below like scattered diamonds across velvet fabric stretched wide overhead, I suddenly felt drawn towards him again despite myself. The warmth radiating from him beckoned gently amidst shadows lingering around us both. Just then, a sudden shout erupted from across campfire circles where children played tag among adults engaged in spirited debates over board games, their merriment echoing loudly across still waters surrounding us, distracting enough momentarily until Robert leaned closer toward me again, breaking through distractions surrounding us both. "You know, sometimes people don't realize what they have until it's almost gone," he murmured thoughtfully while gazing out onto rippling waves reflecting moonlight above. A hint of sadness laced within those words struck home harder than anticipated, leaving lingering questions swirling throughout mind, unbidden yet undeniable, pressing against heart, desperate, seeking clarity amid chaos unfolding all around us tonight. Suddenly another shout rang out, cutting through silence hanging thickly between breaths shared. My heart raced, knowing something had shifted irrevocably already without warning. What began innocently now spiraled dangerously close toward unknown depths neither one could foresee, yet both sensed lurking beneath surface, threatening everything familiar we once held dear. The fire crackled softly, casting flickering shadows on the walls of the cabin. I sat across from my father-in-law, the warmth of the flames contrasting with the chill creeping into my heart. The conversation had turned to memories, stories of family gatherings long past, and the laughter that once filled this space. Yet beneath that laughter lay an unspoken tension, a current that pulled us closer together. "Do you remember the summer when we all went camping?" he asked, his eyes sparkling with nostalgia. "Your husband almost set the tent on fire trying to cook." A smile tugged at my lips as I recalled that chaotic night, but it quickly faded. The distance between me and my husband felt like an insurmountable chasm. "Yes," I replied softly, "I do." As he continued reminiscing, I found myself drawn deeper into his words, each anecdote laced with a bittersweet undertone. I was reminded of how much I missed feeling connected to someone who truly understood me. The air between us thickened with unacknowledged feelings. It was as if we were both dancing around an invisible line we dared not cross. "Sometimes," he said quietly, "I think about what it would be like if things were different." His gaze met mine, and for a moment, the world outside faded away. Guilt washed over me like a cold wave crashing against rocks. How could I entertain such thoughts? My heart raced at the implications of his words and my own burgeoning feelings. Yet here we were, two people caught in a web of loneliness and longing. Before I could respond, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen, followed by hurried footsteps. My husband burst into the room, breathless and wide-eyed. "There's been an accident at home," he exclaimed urgently. "We need to go." The moment shattered like glass around us. Our fragile connection evaporated into thin air as reality crashed back in. Panic gripped my chest as I stood up instinctively, but my eyes lingered on my father-in-law's face, confusion mingled with concern reflected back at me. "Is everyone okay?" I asked hurriedly while trying to process what was happening. "I don't know," he said sharply before turning toward his son. "What happened?" "The neighbor called," my husband replied tersely. "They saw smoke coming from our garage." In an instant, we were thrust back into our roles as caretakers and protectors, duty overshadowing everything else. The spark that had ignited between us moments before flickered out entirely under the weight of urgency. As we rushed out of the cabin and into the cool night air, I couldn't shake off the feeling of loss that settled heavily in my chest, a reminder of what might have been had fate not intervened so cruelly. The drive home was tense, silence enveloped us like a thick fog. My husband's knuckles were white on the steering wheel as he focused intently on navigating through winding roads illuminated by headlights cutting through darkness. My mind raced with thoughts of what lay ahead, of potential damage and consequences, but also of what had just transpired between me and my father-in-law. It felt wrong to dwell on it now, yet there was no escaping how alive I had felt in that moment before everything changed. When we finally arrived home, chaos greeted us. Neighbors stood gathered outside our property while firefighters worked diligently to contain whatever disaster had unfolded within those familiar walls. I stepped out of the car slowly, dread pooling in my stomach as I took in the scene before me, the flickering lights reflecting off faces filled with worry and concern for our family's safety. My husband rushed ahead toward the chaos while I lingered behind for just a moment longer. Uncertainty gnawed at me relentlessly as questions swirled through my mind like leaves caught in a gusty autumn wind. What if this was just another sign? A warning about how fragile everything truly was? As soon as we entered our home, a place once filled with warmth now shrouded in smoke, I felt an overwhelming sense of vulnerability wash over me. The familiar scents were replaced by acrid reminders of danger lurking just beyond reach. Every corner whispered secrets long buried beneath layers of routine. "Are you okay?" My husband's voice cut through my thoughts sharply as he turned back toward me after checking each room for signs of damage or danger. "Yeah," I managed to reply weakly despite feeling anything but steady inside, my heart still racing from more than just fear for our home. But even amid this crisis looming over us all like dark clouds threatening rain, the memory lingered. The kiss shared by firelight moments before everything shifted irrevocably. A connection forged amidst turmoil now fraught with uncertainty. How could something so profound arise from such chaos? And why did it feel both exhilarating yet terrifying all at once? As we surveyed what remained intact within these walls, our sanctuary shaken yet standing strong, I couldn't help but wonder if perhaps this incident would force clarity upon us both. Or merely deepen divides already threatening to fracture everything we held dear. With every passing moment spent navigating through this unexpected storm brewing outside, it became clear. Choices loomed ahead waiting patiently for resolution while emotions churned beneath surface creating ripples no one could ignore any longer. The wind howled outside, rattling the cabin's windows as I stood by the fire, my thoughts tangled in confusion. The warmth of the flames did little to thaw the chill settling in my heart. I had shared a moment with him that transcended mere familial ties, and now I found myself grappling with the implications of that connection. "Do you think it'll get worse?" he asked, his voice low as he joined me by the hearth. Jack's father, Robert, was a man who had always exuded a comforting presence, but tonight there was an edge to him that mirrored my own turmoil. "Perhaps," I replied, glancing at him. "But maybe it's just a storm passing through." My heart raced as I recalled our kiss, the moment when everything shifted between us. We stood in silence for a while, listening to the crackling wood and the rain pounding against the roof. The atmosphere felt charged with unspoken words. I wanted to share my fears about my marriage but hesitated. What would he think? Would he judge me for feeling so lost? "I've been thinking about what you said earlier," Robert finally spoke, breaking the silence. "About feeling disconnected." His gaze held mine, earnest and searching. I nodded slowly. "It's been hard lately. Jack and I seem to be drifting apart." Robert stepped closer, his eyes softening. "You're not alone in that struggle. Sometimes it feels like we're just going through the motions." His words resonated deeply within me. It was comforting to know someone understood this loneliness that had begun to consume me like a shadow creeping into every corner of my life. "What about you?" I asked cautiously. "How do you feel?" He sighed heavily, running a hand through his hair. "I lost her too soon," he said quietly, referring to his late wife. "There are days when it feels unbearable." Our conversation deepened as we confided in each other about our personal struggles, losses that left gaping holes in our hearts and lives. It was cathartic yet fraught with danger. Each word exchanged felt like stepping further into uncharted territory. As we talked, an unexpected bond began to form between us, a connection born from shared grief and longing for something more than what life had dealt us. But with every moment spent together, guilt gnawed at me like an unwelcome guest. What if this is just a distraction? I wondered aloud. Maybe, Robert admitted thoughtfully. But sometimes distractions are necessary to help us see what we truly want. His honesty struck a chord within me. Perhaps this was all part of a larger journey, a quest for understanding amidst chaos. We decided to take a walk outside to clear our heads after our intense conversation. The air was crisp and refreshing against my skin as we stepped onto the porch overlooking the lake shrouded in mist. "I love this place," I said softly, taking in the serene beauty around us, the vibrant autumn leaves dancing in the wind reflected on the water's surface. "It holds many memories for all of us," Robert replied quietly. As we walked along the path lined with trees ablaze in fall colors, laughter echoed from somewhere nearby, the sounds of family enjoying their time together while we wrestled with our own emotions. Then suddenly, without warning, Jack appeared around a bend ahead of us, his expression shifting from surprise to confusion as he spotted us together. "What are you two doing out here?" he asked, his tone casual but laced with suspicion. Caught off guard by his presence, I stumbled over my words as Robert stepped back slightly, a protective instinct surfacing between us. "We were just talking," I managed to say after what felt like an eternity. Jack's brow furrowed as he studied both of us closely before nodding slowly while masking any deeper feelings behind his smile. Yet something lingered in the air, a tension thick enough to cut through with a knife. "Dinner will be ready soon," Jack announced before turning back toward the cabin without waiting for a response. As he walked away, anxiety bubbled within me like boiling water ready to overflow. How much did he sense? Did he see through our facade? My heart raced at the thought of being discovered, the weight of secrecy pressing down harder than ever before. "Maybe we should go back inside," Robert suggested gently after Jack disappeared from view. Yes, I agreed hastily while trying to shake off feelings of unease settling over me like fog rolling across water's edge. Inside again amidst familiar surroundings, yet everything now felt different, charged with unspoken truths and lingering glances exchanged between Robert and myself that spoke volumes without uttering another word aloud. Dinner passed uneasily, laughter among family felt distant while my mind wandered back outside where clarity seemed possible only moments ago. What had once been simple conversations now morphed into complicated emotions woven tightly together by shared experiences no one else could comprehend fully except each other. Later that evening, after everyone retired for bed, I found myself staring out at shimmering reflections cast upon dark waters below, contemplating choices made and paths taken leading here tonight, wondering if tomorrow would bring more clarity or simply deepen confusion surrounding these newfound feelings threatening to unravel bonds once thought unbreakable. I closed my eyes briefly, wishing for some semblance of peace before drifting into uneasy sleep filled with dreams swirling around love lost and connections forged under uncertain skies, each moment echoing louder than before, urging decisions long overdue yet weighed down by loyalty pulling taut against desires whispering softly beneath surface begging attention. Time slipped away unnoticed until morning arrived, bringing light filtering through curtains, casting shadows across room where restless thoughts still lingered heavy upon heart, seeking resolution amid chaos spiraling further outwards, demanding acknowledgement. What would happen next? Would these tangled emotions lead toward healing or fracture everything irrevocably? With uncertainty looming overhead, I knew one thing. Choices awaited just beyond horizon, readying themselves for confrontation, demanding honesty amid tangled webs spun delicately around fragile hearts yearning for connection. The soft glow of dawn filtered through the curtains, casting gentle light across the room. I stirred awake, my mind still tangled in the remnants of last night. We spent the night together, and now a sense of unease washed over me. The warmth of his presence lingered beside me, a stark contrast to the chill creeping into my heart. As I turned to face him, I couldn't shake off the weight of my choices. Our conversations had flowed easily, revealing layers of grief and longing we both carried. We had shared stories of loss, his wife's absence still a raw wound, my marriage feeling like a ghost haunting me. In those moments, it felt as if we were two souls adrift, finding solace in one another's company amidst our shared sorrow. But now, with daylight breaking through the window, reality loomed large. I had crossed a line that could unravel everything I held dear. Guilt gnawed at me as I recalled how our laughter had echoed in the quiet cabin last night, how we had confided in each other about our struggles and desires. Each word had drawn us closer until boundaries blurred and we surrendered to an overwhelming connection. The shrill sound of my phone jolted me from my thoughts. It was a text from Jack. "Where are you?" "We're worried." Panic surged through me as I glanced at his name on the screen. My heart raced. What would I say? How could I explain my absence without revealing the truth? I quickly silenced the phone and turned to look at him again. He was still asleep, his expression peaceful yet vulnerable. A wave of affection washed over me, a stark reminder of what I was risking by being here with him instead of at home with Jack. I slipped out of bed quietly, careful not to disturb him. The cabin felt eerily quiet as I padded across the wooden floor toward the small kitchen area. The aroma of fresh coffee wafted through the air, beckoning me like an old friend. I poured myself a cup and leaned against the counter, staring out at the serene lake shimmering under the morning sun. What was happening to me? A part of me craved this connection with Jack's father. It filled a void that had grown too wide to ignore in my marriage. Yet another part screamed for clarity and honesty, both with myself and with Jack. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door that made my heart leap into my throat. My mind raced through possible scenarios. Could it be Jack? Had he come looking for me? My pulse quickened as I approached cautiously. I opened the door just enough to see who stood on the other side. My father-in-law looked disheveled yet composed, concern etched on his face. "Elizabeth," he said softly, glancing around nervously before stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "I woke up and didn't see you." "I was just getting coffee," I stammered, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy while feeling exposed under his gaze. He nodded but didn't seem convinced by my casual tone. "I thought maybe we could talk." His voice was steady but held an undercurrent of urgency that made my stomach twist. "Sure," I replied hesitantly, gesturing toward the small table where two chairs sat side by side. As we settled down across from each other, silence hung between us like an unspoken confession waiting to be voiced. The weight of our actions loomed large. It felt almost suffocating in this intimate space we'd created together. "I can't stop thinking about what happened last night," he finally said, breaking through my reverie. My breath caught in my throat as he continued to speak about his feelings, his loneliness after losing his wife and how he felt more alive talking with me than he had in years. Each word resonated deeply within me. How could he articulate everything I felt but hadn't dared to admit? "I don't want this to end," he said earnestly, eyes searching mine for understanding. A rush of emotion flooded through me, fear mingled with longing, and before I knew it, words tumbled from my lips. "Neither do I." The moment hung heavy between us before he reached across the table and took my hand gently in his own, a simple gesture that ignited something profound within me once more. But then reality crashed back like thunder rolling across darkened skies. What did this mean for our families? For Jack? The guilt crept back in like an unwelcome shadow threatening to engulf us both. Just then, another text vibrated against my leg, the screen lighting up with Jack's name once more. "Please come home soon." My heart sank further into despair as panic clawed at me anew. How could I face him now? What would happen if he found out about this secret connection? "We should go back," I suggested suddenly, pulling away from him instinctively as fear took hold again. His expression shifted from hopefulness to disappointment in an instant, a painful reminder that while our bond felt real and urgent here in this secluded space, it was built on shaky ground fraught with consequences beyond our control. "Elizabeth," he began softly but stopped when he saw something flicker behind my eyes, a realization dawning upon both of us simultaneously that perhaps returning wasn't just about leaving this place behind. It meant confronting truths we'd both been avoiding for too long. Before either of us could say anything more profound or meaningful, a frantic call came through on my phone again, this time louder than before, as if demanding attention urgently rather than waiting patiently for clarity or resolution. "Answer it," he urged quietly but firmly, knowing full well whose voice awaited me on the other end, the one person who deserved honesty above all else. Taking a deep breath filled with trepidation mixed with resolve, I pressed accept against all odds, knowing full well whatever awaited would change everything irrevocably. I hesitated, my heart racing as I accepted the call. The familiar voice of my husband, Jack, filtered through the speaker, laced with concern. "Where are you? I've been trying to reach you for hours." His tone struck a chord deep within me. I glanced at my father-in-law, who sat across from me, his expression a mixture of worry and understanding. This moment felt like a fragile thread hanging between us, a connection that could either deepen or unravel everything. I'm at the cabin," I managed to say, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "Just taking some time to think." "Think? About what?" Jack pressed, his words tinged with frustration. "You've been distant lately. I just want to know if you're okay." I wanted to tell him everything, that I was lost in emotions that had spiraled beyond my control, but the words caught in my throat. Instead, I opted for a vague reassurance. "I'm fine. Just needed some air." As I hung up, silence enveloped us like a heavy fog. My father-in-law leaned forward slightly, his brow furrowed in thought. "He's worried about you," he said softly. "Yes," I replied, feeling the weight of guilt settle heavily on my shoulders. "And he should be." The tension between us thickened, as if we were both acutely aware of the choices we had made and their implications. My heart raced not only from Jack's call but also from the undeniable bond that had formed between me and my father-in-law during this retreat. "I've been thinking," he began cautiously, "about my own marriage." His gaze met mine, and there was an intensity there that made it difficult to breathe. "What do you mean?" He sighed deeply, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "Linda and I have been drifting apart for years now. It's like we're living separate lives under one roof." My heart sank as I listened to him share his struggles. His emotional isolation mirrored mine in ways I hadn't expected. "I never thought it would come to this," he continued. "But lately, it feels like we're just going through the motions." "Maybe you should talk to her," I suggested weakly, though part of me understood that conversation might lead him down a path he couldn't return from. He shook his head slowly. "It's more complicated than that." There was a heaviness in his voice that resonated with my own turmoil. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again, another message from Jack lighting up the screen with urgency. "Please come home soon." Asterisk. The words felt like a punch in the gut. They reminded me of all that was at stake, my family, my marriage, and yet here I was entangled in something so unexpected and profound with someone else entirely. "I need to go back," I said abruptly, standing up as if making a physical break would somehow ease the emotional chaos swirling within me. "Elizabeth," he implored gently but firmly as he rose too, closing the space between us just enough for me to feel the warmth radiating from him. "Think about what you really want." What did I want? The question echoed in my mind like an unanswered prayer as memories of laughter-filled evenings with Jack clashed against this new connection, a bond forged through shared vulnerabilities and unspoken desires. "I don't know," I admitted finally, feeling raw and exposed. He took a step closer still, Our breaths mingled in the cool air between us as he searched for words. "If you leave now without sorting through this, you might regret it." Regret loomed over me like dark clouds threatening rain, a storm waiting to break free at any moment. "I can't keep doing this," I whispered hoarsely as tears threatened to spill over. "Neither can I," he replied quietly but resolutely. The gravity of our situation pressed down on me. Every choice felt monumental now. One wrong step could lead to irrevocable consequences for both our families. "I need time," I said finally, backing away slightly as if creating distance could somehow shield us both from what lay ahead. "Take all the time you need," he assured me softly but with an edge of sadness that sent shivers down my spine. As night fell around us like a shroud cloaking our secrets under its cover of darkness, uncertainty loomed larger than ever before. The weight of unmade decisions hung heavily in the air as we stood there silently grappling with what lay ahead. The next morning dawned bright but cold. Sunlight streamed through the windows illuminating dust particles dancing lazily in its rays, a stark contrast to the turmoil swirling within me still unresolved after last night's revelations. After breakfast with Jack, who seemed even more concerned after our phone conversation, I decided it was best for everyone if we ventured out together into town for some distraction amidst all this chaos. As we walked through quaint shops filled with autumn decorations and local craftspeople selling their wares at stalls lining Main Street during festival season, the air rich with scents of cinnamon and baked goods, I tried desperately to focus on anything other than what had transpired just hours ago back at the cabin where secrets lingered like shadows behind every corner waiting patiently until they could no longer be contained. Jack stopped suddenly outside one shop displaying handmade pottery. His expression shifted into something more serious than before when he turned towards me. "You know, if something is bothering you, you can talk about it." The sincerity behind those words struck deep within me, reminding me once again why we'd built our life together despite all its challenges. But even then, a part of myself remained tethered elsewhere, lost amidst uncharted territory where emotions flowed freely without boundaries or rules guiding them anymore. "I will," was all I managed before diverting my gaze away from him towards distant trees painted vibrant shades against blue skies overhead, a reminder perhaps that change was inevitable whether welcomed or not. As evening approached, once more bringing with it familiar warmth around fires crackling nearby, it felt almost surreal being surrounded by family while harboring such secrets beneath smiles exchanged casually over dinner plates filled generously amongst laughter shared freely among loved ones gathered close together sharing stories long forgotten. But then came another text message buzzing insistently against fabric-covering pockets where phones resided quietly awaiting attention. It was from him again. "We need to talk." Every muscle tensed instinctively upon reading those words, the weight behind them heavy enough they threatened collapse upon everything else already precariously balanced atop uncertainty looming just beyond reach. And suddenly reality crashed back down upon me like waves crashing relentlessly against rocky shores. The truth would soon surface whether ready or not, forcing choices upon everyone involved, leading inevitably towards confrontation no matter how much avoidance remained tempting. Tomorrow would bring clarity, or chaos, and whatever path lay ahead would demand honesty above all else, leaving no room left untouched by consequences awaiting reckoning. The sun rose over the lakeside cabin, casting a golden hue across the water. I stood at the window, watching the early morning mist rise like whispers of secrets yet to be revealed. My heart weighed heavy with uncertainty. The events of the past few days replayed in my mind, each moment layered with complexity and longing. After our clandestine night together, I had hoped for clarity. Instead, I found myself spiraling deeper into confusion. My father-in-law's presence lingered in my thoughts, a constant reminder of the emotional void in my marriage. I needed to confront my feelings head-on and decide where my loyalties truly lay. As I made my way to the local festival, a familiar face caught my eye. Susan, an old friend from college, waved enthusiastically as she approached. Her smile was infectious, and for a moment, it felt like stepping back into a simpler time, a time before responsibilities weighed me down. Elizabeth. It's been ages, she exclaimed, pulling me into a warm embrace. It really has, I replied, forcing a smile despite the turmoil within me. We wandered through the festival grounds together, surrounded by laughter and music that echoed memories of our youth. The scent of caramel apples and pumpkin spice filled the air, momentarily distracting me from my worries. Yet as we talked about our lives, her children growing up and my own struggles, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. Are you happy? Susan asked suddenly, her gaze piercing through my facade. The question hung in the air like an uninvited guest. I'm managing, I replied cautiously. She nodded knowingly but didn't press further. Instead, we continued to stroll amidst vibrant stalls and joyful faces until something caught my eye, a small booth adorned with handmade crafts and trinkets. Among them was a delicate wooden box that seemed to call out to me. As I picked it up, something fell out, a letter addressed to me in Jack's handwriting. My heart raced as I unfolded it, feeling exposed even among strangers. The words bled honesty onto the page. Dear Elizabeth. I've been thinking about us lately, how we've drifted apart over the years. Life has become routine, our connection feels strained. I miss what we had before. Each line felt like an echo of everything I had been feeling but hadn't dared to voice aloud. The weight of his words pressed down on me as realization dawned. He too was struggling with loneliness and longing for connection. Susan watched quietly as I read, sensing something significant had shifted within me. What's wrong? She asked gently. I hesitated before sharing snippets of Jack's letter, the essence of his vulnerability resonating deeply with my own hidden fears. It seems we're both lost, I confessed softly. Her eyes softened with understanding as she placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. Sometimes it takes losing ourselves to find our way back. The truth behind her words struck like lightning. Maybe this journey wasn't just about exploring feelings for my father-in-law but also about rediscovering who I was within my marriage. As we continued wandering through the festival crowds filled with laughter and joy, an unsettling thought crept into my mind. How would Jack react if he knew about what had happened between me and his father? The guilt was suffocating. Every shared glance or lingering touch felt like betrayal against someone who clearly cared for me deeply. When we finally returned home later that evening, exhaustion washed over me alongside a renewed determination to confront these tangled emotions head-on. But as soon as I stepped inside the cabin, an unexpected sight awaited. Jack sat at the kitchen table with his head buried in his hands. Elizabeth, he looked up as if sensing my presence before speaking again with an edge of desperation in his voice. We need to talk. My heart raced at his tone. This was not how I envisioned tonight unfolding. What's going on? I asked cautiously while taking a seat across from him. I found your phone, he said bluntly without preamble, the accusation hanging heavily between us like fog over water, thickening every breath taken in silence thereafter. My stomach dropped at those words. Dread filled every crevice of hope within me that perhaps tonight could bring clarity rather than chaos instead. What do you mean? He slid my phone across the table toward me. There it lay, my messages exchanged with him, my father-in-law, all laid bare under scrutiny beyond what any family should endure together. Betrayal compounded by secrecy now threatening everything built over years gone by. I can explain, came out barely above a whisper, but even those words felt inadequate against what hung in balance now between us both. Jack's expression morphed from concern into hurt, then anger faster than lightning strikes illuminating dark skies above, a tempest brewing within him mirrored by turmoil raging inside myself too amid this unexpected confrontation. We've both been hiding things, he said slowly as if working through each word carefully chosen yet laden with emotion beneath their surface. Words meant not just for him but also meant ultimately for us both too. I swallowed hard against rising panic threatening to consume whatever remained intact between us. Even now, it all felt so fragile, as if one wrong move could shatter everything left unspoken or unresolved, still lingering amid shadows cast by choices made along paths unforeseen until now. Then came another twist. The sound of footsteps approaching from behind interrupted our exchange, abruptly followed by another familiar voice entering uninvited. "Is everything okay?" It was Jack's father standing there, looking concerned yet unaware fully regarding gravity surrounding moments shared just moments prior, and suddenly reality crashed back down upon me once more. Caught between two worlds, the man who'd been beside me through life's ups and downs versus this newfound connection igniting flames within, a choice loomed ahead, demanding resolution amidst chaos surrounding us all now. The moment Jack's father stepped into the cabin, I felt a jolt of panic surge through me. His brow furrowed, and concern etched across his face as he took in my expression. The weight of our shared moments hung in the air like an unspoken promise, and I struggled to find the right words to deflect his attention. "Everything's fine," I managed to say, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask than a genuine expression. Inside, my heart raced as I thought about what had just transpired with his son's mother, my husband, and the man who now stood before me, a man I had crossed boundaries with in ways I never thought possible. Jack's father hesitated, his eyes searching mine for something deeper. "You seem distant. Are you sure you're all right?" He stepped closer, his voice low and soothing, a stark contrast to the turmoil swirling within me. I nodded again, this time more emphatically. "Just tired from all the festivities," I replied, glancing out the window at the vibrant autumn leaves fluttering in the breeze. The local festival was still buzzing outside, laughter and music echoed against the tranquil backdrop of the lake. Yet here I was, feeling trapped between two worlds, one filled with familial duty and the other igniting an unexpected passion. He reached out and touched my arm gently, grounding me momentarily. "If you need to talk about anything, I'm here." His sincerity pierced through my defenses. Before I could respond, Jack entered the cabin with an air of casualness that felt entirely misplaced given our current circumstances. "Hey. What's going on?" His gaze darted between us, sensing an undercurrent of tension but unaware of its true nature. "Just catching up," Jack's father said smoothly, withdrawing his hand from my arm as if he sensed that our connection was too palpable for comfort. "Right," Jack replied skeptically but moved on quickly enough. "Dinner is almost ready. Mom wants everyone to gather around soon." As he turned back toward the kitchen area, relief washed over me momentarily, until it hit me that this reprieve would be short-lived. Later that evening at dinner, laughter filled the room as everyone shared stories from past family gatherings. But beneath it all lay an unspoken tension clinging to me like a heavy shroud. Jack sat across from me, animatedly recounting tales from his childhood while I struggled to focus on anything other than how close his father sat beside me. With each passing moment, memories of our secret rendezvous flooded back, whispered confessions by candlelight and stolen glances that lingered too long. The guilt gnawed at my insides even as desire flickered just beneath the surface. Halfway through dinner, Jack excused himself to grab another bottle of wine from the kitchen. As soon as he left, Jack's father leaned closer toward me again. "We need to talk," he said quietly. My heart raced anew at his words. Part of me wanted to flee while another part craved clarity amidst this confusion. "About what?" I asked softly. "About us," he replied simply yet charged with meaning that sent shivers down my spine. I glanced around quickly before leaning in closer too. "What do you mean about us?" He hesitated for a moment before speaking again. There was urgency in his voice now mixed with something deeper, a hint of desperation perhaps. "I've been thinking about leaving my wife." His confession struck me like lightning, unexpected yet somehow inevitable given everything we had shared during this retreat. My mind raced through scenarios. What if we both left our spouses? What would that mean for our families? Is this really what you want? My voice barely rose above a whisper. Fear coursed through me at what such choices could entail, not just for us but for those we loved too. I don't know, he admitted candidly. Vulnerability seeped into every word spoken between us now, fragile yet potent enough to ignite flames anew within my heart despite everything else weighing heavily on my conscience. Before I could respond further or process what lay ahead fully, the sound of footsteps approached once more heralding Jack's return, and just like that our moment evaporated into thin air once again. After dinner concluded with forced pleasantries exchanged amongst family members gathered around us all, I found myself retreating outside onto the porch alone, seeking solace under starlit skies above where silence enveloped everything around me now. But solitude proved fleeting when Jack found me moments later leaning against one of those wooden beams supporting this space, a look etched across his face revealing concern mixed with familiarity born from years spent together navigating life's winding paths side by side. "Hey," he said softly as he stepped closer until only inches separated us now, his warmth radiating toward mine despite lingering doubts still lingering deep inside my thoughts about everything unfolding around us lately. "Just needed some fresh air," I replied evasively while glancing away briefly before meeting his gaze once more. The intensity there made it difficult not to feel trapped between emotions swirling wildly within myself now. "I get it," he murmured quietly before continuing hesitantly after a pause filled only by sounds drifting through trees surrounding us both. "You've seemed off lately." His words hit home hard. I couldn't deny they resonated deeply within. But how could I possibly explain without revealing secrets better left buried beneath layers built over years spent together? "I'm fine, really," came out instinctively, though even saying it felt like betrayal against truths hidden beneath layers far too complex for mere words alone. Jack reached out, then taking hold of my hand, gently squeezing lightly as if trying somehow bridge gaps forming between us. But instead all it did was amplify everything else happening inside me, spiraling toward chaos anew. Just then, the shrill ring of my phone shattered fragile silence hanging thickly around us both, causing heartbeats racing faster than ever before. It was a message notification from an unknown number. A sense foreboding settled deep within, instantly recognizing potential consequences looming ahead should curiosity compel action taken upon reading whatever lay waiting behind screen, illuminating darkness surrounding nighttime sky above. As if sensing turmoil building inside, I pulled away abruptly, breaking contact, feeling overwhelmed suddenly by weight pressing down upon shoulders far heavier than expected given circumstances faced now. "What is it?" Jack asked curiously, leaning closer again, trying coax answers forth, but instead all I could manage was silence echoing louder than any spoken word could convey right then, amidst chaos unraveling ever more tightly around each breath taken next. The tension in the room thickened, a palpable weight pressing down on me as I sat at the dinner table, surrounded by family yet feeling utterly alone. Jack's voice drifted through my thoughts, asking what was wrong, but I couldn't muster a coherent response. The laughter and chatter of our family felt distant, like echoes of a life that no longer resonated with me. As the meal progressed, I noticed my father-in-law glancing at me from across the table. His eyes held questions that mirrored my own turmoil. The warmth from the fireplace flickered shadows on the walls, creating an atmosphere both cozy and stifling. I could sense the unspoken truths lurking beneath our polite conversations. They were waiting for a moment to surface. The dinner conversation shifted to lighter topics, but my mind was elsewhere. Memories of our secret meetings flooded back, those stolen moments that had felt both exhilarating and terrifying. I thought about how we kissed by the fire, how our lips met in a rush of longing that felt impossible to ignore. Yet here I was, trapped in a facade, pretending everything was fine while my heart raced with conflicting emotions. Then it happened, a slip of the tongue that shattered the fragile veneer we had all been maintaining. Jack's sister spoke casually about an upcoming family event and mentioned something about the two of you needing to plan together. My heart sank as her words hung in the air like a guillotine poised to drop. What do you mean? Jack asked, his brow furrowing with confusion. I felt every eye turned towards me and my father-in-law as if we were suddenly under scrutiny. The tension escalated in an instant. It was as if all our secrets had conspired against us to reveal themselves at once. I meant, she stammered, realizing her mistake too late. My father-in-law cleared his throat awkwardly, but I saw the flicker of recognition pass between us, the silent acknowledgement that we were caught in a web of our own making. My heart raced. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about everyone around us who would be affected by what we had done. I think we should talk about this later, he said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. Talk about what? Jack asked again, suspicion creeping into his tone. I could feel myself shrinking under their gazes, desperately searching for words that wouldn't betray us further. But silence enveloped me like a shroud. Nothing could be said without tearing apart everything we held dear. Let's just enjoy dinner, I finally managed to say, forcing a smile that felt brittle on my lips. The conversation resumed awkwardly after that momentary lapse into chaos. Laughter returned but felt hollow. Each chuckle seemed to echo louder against the backdrop of my internal conflict. Every bite tasted bland as I chewed through layers of unspoken words and hidden desires. Later that evening, while everyone gathered around the fireplace for dessert, I found myself retreating into thoughts again, thoughts filled with images of fleeting moments shared with him away from prying eyes. Those late-night conversations where he confided in me about his struggles and fears, how they mirrored mine more than either of us wanted to admit. But then reality crashed back in when Jack approached me quietly after dessert was served. Can we talk? He asked softly enough for only me to hear. I nodded reluctantly and followed him outside onto the porch where cool air wrapped around us like an embrace filled with uncertainty. The stars twinkled above us in stark contrast to the darkness settling within my heart. What's going on? You've seemed off all weekend, he pressed gently yet firmly. His concern cut deeper than any knife could have pierced. It made me question if honesty would be worth losing everything or if remaining silent would condemn us all to live with this unbearable tension forever. Just tired, I replied weakly, avoiding his gaze as guilt gnawed at my insides. He studied me for a moment longer before sighing heavily. You know you can tell me anything. The sincerity in his voice made it harder to maintain my facade. Part of me longed to spill everything, the truth about what had transpired between us, but another part screamed for self-preservation. As if sensing my hesitation, he took another step closer and reached out for my hand, a gesture meant to comfort but only ignited more conflict within me. Please don't shut me out. In that moment of vulnerability between us, a rare occurrence, I weighed my options. Confessing would mean risking everything we had built together, while remaining silent could lead down paths neither of us wanted to tread further into darkness alone. Before I could respond or gather enough courage to speak up about anything beyond trivialities, footsteps approached behind us, my father-in-law emerging from inside looking grave yet resolute. We need to talk, he said simply but firmly enough that it sent shivers down my spine at his serious tone. Jack turned towards him with an expression caught between confusion and concern while I stood frozen between them, caught in this chaotic storm swirling around relationships bound by love yet tainted by betrayal simmering just beneath surface-level interactions we'd maintained until now. What came next would unravel everything, the very threads holding our lives together threatening to snap under pressure as unspoken truths clawed their way toward light.